Two gentlemen, both alike in dignity, in fair old Oxford where we lay our scene. Mr. Giles Block.
Hello.
And Nigel Frith. They're both conservators, Giles of the Shakespearean mode and Nigel of the epic mode. I hope you'll forgive the rather lame parody I just delivered, but it seems to me your long friendship is rooted in your intimacy with Shakespeare. Now, how did that come about? Giles, can you recall that?
Well, we both came up to Oxford at exactly the same time, at St. Cat's, and we pretty quickly got realised. I don't actually remember too much.
I don't remember how we met, but
we met.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think we were. I remember talking to you in St. Cat's, down St. Aldits, as it then was, the old college, in the JCR. And but you see, you were doing history.
Yes.
And the historians could not had a severe academic programme in that you had to do prelims straight off, didn't you?
Yes.
So you couldn't do really any acting in your first term.
Maybe not,
No.
but maybe I did something with St. Cat's itself.
You did.
But I think I'm right in saying you had both been schoolboy actors in Shakespeare.
We had. I was at Dulwich College, which was, and I started getting, doing plays at
not
College.
just Dulwich, not just Dulwich. Michael Croft.
Well, that comes a little later. I mean,
Oh.
I can remember that I was,
But you acted with Michael Croft before Oxford, didn't you?
yes.
Yeah, there you
Well,
are.
the youth theatre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The youth theatre.
There's so much to tell.
The youth theatre. With
I,
Helen Mirren in her teenage manifestation. It was quite something. I remember her dancing in a very short skirt and nothing on underneath in a party at Giles's place in Dulwich. Your parents' place in Allane's Park.
You were a very lucky man.
Yes, I was lucky. I lived very near the school, and and my mum and dad and my brother, we had this nice house.
Very close.
Very close. Yeah.
Now, one gets the impression that that not a lot of work was done.
Giles
by
worked.
Oxford undergraduates. I have a reason for saying that because in your excellent book on speaking to speech, Giles, you acknowledge those who, quote, have encouraged me and furthered my understanding of Shakespeare. And particularly you pick out your friends Nigel Frith, Michael Billington and Michael Elwyn.
Yes.
Now it's Michael Elwyn, funnily enough, who was quoted in the Northern Echo of May 2001. He said that in 1942, when I went to university in Oxford, I acted all the time. I treated it like a drama school.
Yeah.
Now it seems to me that that might have been your particular pursuit as well, being trained in the profession while being at university purporting to study other things.
True, absolutely. And we got, Duchess of Malfi, we were in that together, weren't we?
Yes.
Didn't we do that at St. Cat's?
Yes.
And you were...
Yes. I was Ferdinand,
and I
which
was
is the best part. You were Boswell.
Boswell.
Yeah.
Yes. So we had that was great, good fun.
Yes, in the CPI.
Yes. So
was good.
that's one. And we tried to. I tried anyway to act as frequently as I could, and I had a slight falling from grace because I failed prelims.
Did you?
I did. Yeah. I failed prelims, and because of that, I wasn't in
You
Richard II.
You weren't in Richard II. Big mistake.
Yes.
Because that was Michael Croft.
Yes,
Michael
yes.
Croft directed Richard II.
Right.
And Michael Croft was...
And I played Richard II on the tour. And
Yes.
I used to stay with Giles and then go into Eccleston Square, wherever it was, to see Michael Croft to sort of be rehearsed.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then... And
And then Helen Mirren would come along for one of the parties afterwards.
Yes, that's always happened. and then we went to Berlin.
We went to Berlin. Youth Theatre went to Berlin.
Yeah.
Well, the National Youth Theatre.
The National
Yes.
Youth Theatre of Berlin. Yeah, and because I'd acted with Michael Croft, you see,
Right.
in Oxford, he said, come and be in the Julius Caesar, which Giles was already in when it was in London, I
Yeah,
suppose.
in the West End.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, was Helen Mirren in the crowd of that?
Yeah. Yes, she possibly...
But she didn't come to Germany, though.
Well, to begin with, there were no women with the youth theatre, I think, as far as I remember. And only, well, by the time I got there, they were 2 or 3 women appeared.
Ah.
And
Well,
yeah,
he picked a winner with Helen Mirren.
and Helen, yes.
Let's
Yeah.
shut up about Helen Mirren.
Yes, she
But you
Go
see,
on about her age,
I mean,
but
we
not
must
particularly.
tell the story of Berlin and Julius Caesar, you see, because
Yeah.
it was a modern dress, Julius Caesar, and so we were all in a sort of British type battle dress, weren't we, for the battle scenes,
Yeah.
and we needed to have arms, you see. So the local British Army, we were in the British sector, said, "Oh, we'll lend you some 2x, these rifles. I forget what they were called." And we all had to go off and pick up these rifles, and then we walked back to the hotel. And the hotel was very close to the wall, where there would be Soviet guards, peering at everything. They see this bunch of students coming along with these rifles. They think, "Oh my God, this is going to be a revolution." But we got away with it.
Indeed, yes. Yeah.
But it was a period of change, of course. Well, not of course, but it was so. And Nigel, you seem to have got the bit between your teeth in terms of trying to maintain the old order in the face of this change that was evident in the theatre. And I think you must have had a gang of like-minded people. Is that a fair comment?
Yes. I mean, we didn't like, at least, I don't know, you weren't right in there amidst this, but we didn't like the kitchen sink guys. Do you remember?
Well, I think I took any play.
Yeah, you were in any camp. Yes.
Yes.
But,
So, yeah.
But
I don't
I'm drawing from a piece of writing that Nigel, it must have been Nigel, it could only have been him, where he says, "It was in my 3rd and final year at Oxford that the culture of the 60s began to reveal itself in its lurid, leering light. And I and a body of actor-lovey friends,
yeah.
stars of the old heroic acting style of the Oxford University Dramatic Society, actually decided to oppose its pernicious seductions. We went so far as to stage a counter-revolution."
Yeah, that was the 55 Club.
Yes, and I didn't do much with the 55 Club. I mean, I used to go there, but I didn't do much.
Well, what was the 55 Club exactly? Was it just this group of lovers that you're referring to?
Well, we thought that the theatre was going downhill and everything, I mean, let's face it, from that point on, it went further and further down until now. It's like it couldn't get more sordid and grotesque, stoning babies and all the rest of it. But we thought we'll strike out and hold the fort for the old noble style, you see. So we had a special club, the 55 Club, where we all dressed up in dinner jackets and the girls dressed up in evening dress, and we met in number 55 Holywell, which was a double room with a little proscenium arch in it, and we put on plays, people who sing Schubert Lieder and things like that. It was quite glamorous, and it was a big success. The girls especially were dying to get in.
I'm not sure I went there.
Yes,
at all.
you did. You did.
I don't think so.
You
I
remember
did.
Andrew Geddes?
Of course, I remember Andrew Geddes.
Yeah, well, that was his rooms. You must have been up there.
Yeah, but I don't remember.
With
I'm not sure I even had a dinner jacket, to be honest. I mean, well, you know, in this period of our lives together, I remember being in plays. So I played Iago with Oliver Ford Davis.
Yeah, who directed that?
Forgotten now, but
Oliver Ford Davis was Othello, and Giles was Iago.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
that was a big big Al's major.
and we had a really beautiful little earlier Midsummer Night's
Midsummer Night's
Dream.
Dream, Neville Coghill, yes, famous production. Yeah.
Yes, with you playing.
Yes, I was Bottom, you were Lysander. No,
Demetrius.
Demetrius, because I remember you used to rush on going, Lysander!
Yes, right, okay.
But,
So, yeah.
yeah, sorry. Can
So, no, I mean, probably I did 2 or 3 plays a term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And occasionally...
Did you act with any of those news school types who became famous, like Graham Murray, Mike
Yes.
Rudman? You know, they all
Yes.
became big names in the theatre.
Well, yes.
And I was opposed to them because they were ruffians, you see.
Yeah, Graham Murray, I can't remember the name of the play.
Hang down your head and die?
No. There was a
Sergeant Musgrave Dance?
no, it was no, can't remember now.
But it's Nigel's reference to this old heroic acting style
Yeah.
of the Oxford University Dramatic Society, which strikes me particularly. Now that would be completely consistent with his general love of Homer and, as I've already referred to it, the epic mode.
Yeah.
But for you, it seems to me that it might have been a foretelling of the role in which you became famous with the Globe in years to come.
Yes,
Because you're in a sense preserving old values.
well,
Is that fair?
well, it's difficult to sort of nail it down like that, but I think after we came down from Oxford, both of us, it was maybe quite a long period of time I didn't see you much at all, and once I left Oxford, I started working in the theatre. Weekly rep to begin with down in Worthing and that sort of thing, and finally getting into more plays and yeah.
When did you start directing?
I started directing. I'd been at. I was asked. I'm remembering something now. Sorry. Which was, I got a bit fed up with directors,
Yeah.
and because I was an actor, and I got a bit fed up with them, and I thought I'd like to direct myself, and
Yeah.
Colchester rep said to me, "You come here for a year, and we'll give you can do one production here, and the rest of the time you can act for us, and you can also go out into the schools and start teaching school children things." So that was my first year, and then second year I still was with them.
And you played Hamlet with them, didn't you?
No, that was Ipswich.
Oh.
That's a little further down the road. This was still Colchester, and I there I directed The Price, wonderful play, The Price.
Right.
There, and also acted. And then after a little while, I was doing some things in other parts of the country. I got in touch with a wonderful man, John Southworth, no longer with us, but he was running Ipswich Theatre. And when I was, just before I went to Ipswich myself, I was working with school children.
Yeah.
And someone said to me, if you want to find out how to work with school children, you must see this man, John Southworth, down the road in Ipswich.
Yeah.
So I went to see him, and he gave me this wonderful technique of going into a classroom with about 40 young school children in there, just around about 10 or 12 or that sort of thing. And he had this way of getting them over a period of maybe, let's say, 5 or 6 weeks into something really rather marvellous.
Yeah.
And that was that he would say to these, he would go into these schools, and I went with him for a while just seeing how he did this thing. He would say, what play would you like to do? And these 40 young boys and girls, maybe they were all boys, I'm not sure about that. What play would you like to do? And they said something like Dracula or something like that. And he'd say, right, okay, well, divide up into different groups. And so these huge groups, it were divided up into sort of 4 or 5. And then he would say to them, okay, well, what should happen first in this story? And so gradually the young people started to practice the story, and if I was running it, I would go around and watch them putting on their little scene, and then week 2 they would move on and do another scene. So that was really rather marvellous. And John Southworth himself, I'm sorry I'm going on at such length, John Southworth himself did this thing with fourth-year-old school leavers. This is when the people at the school had nothing to do with these people, because they're all going to leave school, I suppose, at the age of 16.
Yeah.
And he took them on, and this thing he did with this group, and I worked with him on this, was that he said to them, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And they said, we would like to do Henry V. And he said, all right, well, we're going to begin. Let's see, what should we do? Where will we begin? What about the day, you're obviously going to go off to war. What about the first day that you all meet as a family and decide what you're going to do on this first day? And they said, well, what do we do? And he says, well, I think you better make breakfast. So the beginning of this was this group all learnt how to make breakfast. and that's when it went on for about 6 or 8 weeks, and they never got to France. But they learnt all these things they were going to do when they got to France.
Well, it's an interesting technique.
And it was, so that was.
But did when we're going to move on a bit to the time when you worked together on Hamlet and
Okay.
took it to Japan.
Yeah.
Was this kind of approach which Giles had developed something that attracted you? You as the adapter of the Hamlet play and Giles as the director. Is that what made it gel, do you think?
No, it just sort of happened, didn't it? Because Giles was in Japan a lot, weren't you?
Yeah, so we've left out a huge amount of my life.
Well, I'm quite sure we have.
So if I can do it really quickly, by the time we're talking about
The National.
the National
Yeah.
Theatre, I was at the National Theatre and I was an assistant director with Peter Hall, yeah, and sorry.
It was divine intervention there, Giles.
Okay.
Yeah, you were doing Amadeus with Peter Hall.
I was doing Amadeus at Peter Hall,
Yeah.
and this became a kind of worldwide. It went everywhere. Is it all right me going on talking?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, yeah, I had a great time working on Amadeus at the National Theatre, and then,
Was that his first production?
yeah, that was the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
production.
yeah.
And then, pretty soon after that, a new production opened. It was going to open in New York,
Yeah.
and so I got sent out to New York, and for about 3 years I was going from London to New York, and when the cast changed, I would put in the new cast changes and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that went on for a long time, quite a long time. And then one day, when I was in my little office at the National Theatre, a Japanese gentleman called Tumu Terakawa, he came into my room and he said, I've been asked to come and talk to you. He was speaking, I can't remember if he was speaking, he must have been speaking in some English, and maybe he had someone with him who was, I can't quite remember that. But it was just an odd morning that I was having this conversation with him. And he said, I want you to come to Japan and stage Amadeus for us in Japanese.
Gosh.
So that was the beginning of me. I was still at the National Theatre, and when I had time, we sort of sorted out when I might go to Japan, and eventually I went to Japan maybe 20 or 30 times. Oh no, maybe 30 times. And at some point, the first play I really did there was Macbeth with Ray Asami playing Lady Macbeth, and then 2 or 3 years later on, she said she wanted to play Hamlet.
Right.
So there she is playing Hamlet.
Right.
That says Hamlet in Japanese.
Right.
But she was something of a rock star, wasn't she?
She was, yes. She
of a catch.
was, because she came. She had this. I can't remember what they were called now.
Tarakawa or something.
Yeah.
Tataraska.
Takaraska.
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 Group of all-girl theatrical performers in Tokyo with a big fan club.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the stars were often these girls who would play the male lead. There were no men in it at all, but
Right.
she would dress up in like Fred Astaire, and she'd be brilliant, dancing, singing. But she ended up playing a classical Lady Macbeth with Giles, and she liked that. And all her fans said, "Oh, we want you to do Hamlet next, but sing as well, you know."
Oh, that's right. Yes, sing as well.
And it sounded,
So that was yeah.
yeah, it sounded a pretty daft idea. But I mean, for her to play Hamlet would be wonderful. But so she wanted something where she could act the play of Hamlet, but also have some songs to please all her fans. And
And then you then somehow
we were
got-
out. You took me out to Japan because you had a spare ticket, you know, from your cousins.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and so I had a lovely time in Japan, and I fell in love with No Theatre, which I adored. But Tarakawa didn't like that because he was kabuki.
Yes.
But we discussed with him then about making a play, making a Hamlet musical, especially for Asami-san.
Because
Yeah.
she wanted to sing,
Yeah, and that's what we did.
and that's
And that was a big success, and it was done in Tokyo, Sunshine Theatre, for a season, and then 2 years later, in 1997, it was sent on a tour of Japan, and it was the first play in Kobe after the horrible earthquake. And
But
that's
it was your job, Nigel, to make the necessary adaptations. and,
you see, they
the
thought,
music and so
yeah,
forth.
they thought Hamlet is a nice play. It's got lots of dialogue in. Wouldn't it be nice if he had some poetry? You see, so they said we must get Nigel Frith, the famous poet, to write some lyrics
Yeah.
for it. You see, so I wrote a number of lyrics and we stuck them in there.
beautiful.
Dominic Muldowney wrote the music
Yes, yes.
he was from the National Theatre too. Wasn't
Yes,
he?
that's right. So we had all these people working on this, and
And you stayed out there, did you, just to sort of keep them up to the mark?
no, I would be out when I was out there. I would probably be out there for somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks.
Yeah.
I would get the show up and running,
Yeah.
and I put
But
up.
nevertheless, the impact was considerable enough for Mark Rylance to want to meet you and invite him to join the club.
Yeah, well, but so by the time, the same time as all these things were going on, they were about to build the Globe, and I was really enthused about building the Globe, but I couldn't really I really couldn't get anywhere with it, really. I went to see Mark Rylance, certainly on 1 or 2 occasions.
Well, you saw Sam Wanamaker too, didn't you?
Oh, and I spent some time working with Sam Wanamaker, yes, putting on a Christmas piece for him, which he could get a lot of finances out from that. And so, right, but
yeah.
so but at this,
So we were out in Japan doing Hamlet at the Sunshine Theatre in 1995.
okay, yes,
And Mark Rylance was also in Tokyo.
bringing his company from the Globe to play in Tokyo,
Yeah.
and it was just like magic how it happened that I was about to do the first dress rehearsal with all these wonderful
Asami-san.
Japanese actors, and I somehow found out that he was free that afternoon, and he and his wife came to watch the dress rehearsal, and he was bowled over by these Japanese actors.
Yeah, they're very good.
And so, also then almost immediately what happened was when I went back to London, it happened that I would work at the Globe with
Yeah.
him, for him.
Yeah.
Well, that's a wonderful story. I mean, he must have been bowled over by you. I'd just like to mention a passage from Mark Rylance's tribute to you. Giles was the perfect master of the word. I remember saying to the company that he was a master not of slaves or of a particular skill. He was a master because of the quality of his love for Shakespeare's words. Giles deepened my love of Shakespeare and for the way we all speak, which reflects the fact that you were there for some 15 years.
23.
23 years, well there you are.
Yes.
I need to sadly bring this to a close, but I'm going to produce another quotation, which this time I'm not going to brutalise, And I'm going to give you the chance to identify the speaker, the play, and to whom the words were spoken. Shakespeare, of course.
Yes.
And the winner will get a Mars bar.
I don't know.
It's particularly appropriate to the two of you and your long friendship. The friends thou hast,
Grapple them to thy soul with hoops of steel.
and their adoption tried, grapple them to your soul with hoops of steel.
Yes. And we have too.
What
have we
play?
not, Giles?
What play?
It's Polonius in Hamlet.
Yeah. Who to?
Ophelia. No, I mean Laertes. Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Well, you win the Mars bar.
Goody, goody.
Thank you very much indeed. It's a wonderful insight into the life of yourselves, and indeed in conjunction with the great William Shakespeare.
Indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.